The book of Daniel is probably the last book of the Old Testament that was written. It was written in the time of exile for the Jewish people who longed to return to their Jerusalem, who yearned for life that was free from persecution and tyranny, for they were severely oppressed. It was illegal to keep a Torah, to keep and hold the Sabbath day as a day of rest, or to keep their covenant with God. The book of Daniel is written as apocalyptic or resistance literature rooted in hope and the certainty that God will triumph over injustice. So there are really 4 characters or players in this story that we're going to take some time to reflect on, because knowing the purpose in reflecting on Scripture is to seek out what a story might be saying to us, how the ancient story can hold up a mirror or challenge us in our context today. So I have 4 symbols that are going to help us think about this story today, and I hope you participate in the conversation. If you don't choose to speak aloud, that's okay, because I trust you're reflecting in your own mind instead of making your grocery list. So, let's start. The first symbol we have today is the symbol of the crown, who symbolizes the character of the king in our story. And King Darius is quite perplexing to me. On one hand, he's a brutal and tyrannical leader, and the people who live under his ruthless power yearn for a Messiah to save them from the injustice. And then he's seemingly powerless to save someone he likes, Daniel, from death, even though King Darius was the one who signed the decree into law in the first place. He seems to go along with the majority, a bystander to the injustice. And then he has an experience that transforms his understanding of who might the living God be, and tells all the people in all the nations of every language in the whole wide world how good God is. Just after he's extended his wrath and punishment of the other leaders by throwing them into the lion's den, because there might be an uprising, or maybe it's because they're on the wrong side of him. So this king, Darius, does it resonate with anyone? Can you see where the context might be in our world today? We've definitely witnessed that, or continue to witness it. But I wonder if there's a part of the character of King Darius that is about you. I wonder what our prayer might be for this character. So Len found me a gavel for my second symbol to represent the presidents and the satraps. In the kingdom that King Darius ruled, he appointed satraps, which were leaders of the local areas who were accountable to the presidents. There were 3 presidents, and one of them was Daniel, who made sure that nothing problematic for the king happened in the kingdom. So a gavel seems like a good symbol for these men in power with a majority of the political and economic clout. Their families lived an extremely affluent lifestyle. They were content with the status quo of the current order because they benefited from keeping things the same. They didn't like Daniel because he was different. He didn't conform to the ways of the world. He was faithful to God and a religion that seemed to counter the culture. Do you notice this in your life? I think this story might be easier to stomach if we were oppressed. But we live with wealth and we have significant influence, and it's more uneasy for us. And yet, as Christians, our call is to notice the ways that we are like the presidents and the satraps, and work with courage to change a life into a life of equality and justice for all. What might be our prayer? Where do you notice the moments of the presidents and the satraps in our world? Dr. Sibley Towner suggests that our prayer might be that we will not settle for the status quo. We will not settle for the world as it's presented to us, nor will we settle for the inevitability of what is said to be inevitable. This lion is way too cute to represent the lions in the lion's den, but it used to be Sabrina's, and his name is Rufus, right? So Rufus the lion. For an animal at the top of the food chain, he doesn't really look like an animal at the top of the food chain, but let's imagine what a lion might look like. These would have to be some seriously powerful angels of God to keep hungry lions' mouths shut, don't you think? In some of the readings that I was doing, they compared the lion's den to the king's court, that it was a symbol of the king's court. We might be able to label those lions. Maybe they are power. Their names are intrigue, danger, fear. I wonder what it would be like, or what it feels like, to be surrounded by lions in a dark cave with no way out. What would be some of the feelings or thoughts that might be going through your brain that are appropriate for this setting? What might you think? What might you be feeling? Pardon? Hopeless. Abandoned. This is the end. Yeah. Sorry? Forsaken. I would be in an extreme sense of fear. And then it would just be like, okay, hopefully this is quick. Wonder what it would feel like to remain steadfast in our knowing and held convictions, surrounded by those feelings of being forsaken, abandoned, big, deep fear, a sense of hopelessness. What lions lurk in the dark for you? That threaten your life or your peace or your joy? What might be your prayer? And finally, Daniel. And I'm not going to move the lantern off this table, just point out one of them. For Daniel in this story was truly a beacon of hope. He was a faithful and devout Jew who prayed to God 3 times a day, each time with his body facing the way to Jerusalem, which was a big deal, because that in itself was a symbol of hope for the exiled people that dreamed of a day when they might be home, a life free from oppression, that there may be new life. Daniel worships the living God regardless of the potential of great personal sacrifice. At the least, great suffering. At the most, death. He trusted in the ancient promise that the kingdom of love would come for those people on the edges of the world. Daniel is definitely one who brings light in this story and shares hope for life renewed. So what about this character of Daniel is about you? How do you bring light and hope to this world? Where do you see others leading and reminding us of hope, of steadfast conviction that God is present? You bring light and hope to this place every day. In every way that you can. You truly are a blessing. But what about this character of Daniel is about you? Perhaps there might be a moment in your day today where you go up to someone and say, just like the character of Daniel, I see hope in you when you do this. And if they're not at church with us today, they'll wonder what you're talking about, so that will start a conversation. But maybe just take a moment to see the light and hope in the people that surround you. And I hope for you that they notice right back at you. Thanks be to God.